Okay. Good afternoon. I hope your lunch was very enjoyable, nutritious, so that we are now ready for our second half. Okay? All right. For our second half of our ministry presentation, we have Dr. Theodore Watkins. Dr. Watkins is a dynamic lecturer, coach, writer, and herbalist, and is a recognized authority in preventive health and wellness. Dr. Watkins has treated thousands of patients whose lives have been devastated by disease lifestyle. He believes that if a patient is taught and practices the principles of healthy living, diseases can be reversed and/or lifespan can be increased. Dr. Watkins is an alumnus of Oakwood University and Howard University College of Medicine. Yay for Howard. In 1983, after completing 5 years in residency, he left surgery to pursue an inward dream that could prevent his patients from entering the operating room. Since that day, Dr. Watkins has embraced, practiced, and crusaded holistic medicine. His holistic approach requires a spiritual, mental, and physical reformation. He also practices alternative medicine as a method to heal and support his patients' physical and mental needs. In 1986, Dr. Watkins participated in the White House Conference on Barriers to Delivering Health Care to the Indigent. He also participated in the American Enterprise Institute Conference on Financing of Health Care in the Indigent in 1987. He has received awards and recognitions. In 1984, he received the National Center of Neighborhood Enterprise Award for his work in low-income housing in Washington, D.C. Dr. Watkins' practice was featured in articles in the Washington Post, one in 1985 and the other in 1987, entitled Prescription, Ounces of Prevention, Pounds Off Care. Washington's TV channel's 9 Sunday edition documented Dr. Watkins' work in a program entitled Up Out of Chairs. The Washington magazine listed Dr. Watkins in their October 1987 issues in the article Top 100 Physicians in the Metropolitan D.C. Dr. Watkins has lectured and taught audiences across the United States, Caribbean, and Bermuda. Dr. Watkins, we welcome you today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I was thinking this morning. I said the reason they put me after lunch, they knew I would spoil your lunch if I spoke first. So but I'm very happy to be here. I was asked to talk about lifestyle. And so I meditated on a topic, and I came up with this topic the other day, life, living, and lifestyle. And I came up with this topic because, we all want to live that good life. Yes. Yes. And when I think about that good life, these 4 things come to my mind. Health, wealth, education, and family, happy families. I tell people I enjoy my, I practice my work. That's why I'm still at almost 80, I'm still practicing. But what I enjoy even more is my family. Growing up, not really knowing my father, one of my goals was to be a good father. And I can remember one Father's Day when my children set me down and told me why they loved me. And I just cried because, you try to do things, but you don't know if it's really coming through. But evidently it came through. And so happy families are very important. And so therefore, we have to do what we can to take care of our families. Now, many of you, probably most of you, have heard of blue zones. blue zones are areas in the world where people live the longest, and they've been studied because of their lifestyles. There's one in Japan, there's one in Italy, there's one in Greece, there's one in Costa Rica, and there's one in the United States. And the one in the United States is in Loma Linda, California. And studies have shown that the Loma Linda blue zone community actually has the longest life expectancy of any group in the world. The longest life expectancy of any group in the world. Now, this gentleman, Dr. Ellsworth Warham, was interviewed here at the age of 98. Dr. Warham is a cardiovascular surgeon and retired from doing cardiovascular surgery at the age of 95. Now, and at the time, as a matter of fact, he mentioned in the interview, his colleagues did not want him to stop practicing. Now, having spent those years in surgery, I know how surgeons think. And if he wasn't good, they would be doing everything they could to get him out of the operating room, but instead they wanted him in the operating room, and he was able to function because of his good health. Now, he claims, and the others in that Loma Linda community claim their results are pointed to the 8 laws of health as the reason for their good health. And I tried to come up with an explanation of what these 8 laws of health are in terms of philosophical. My attorney wife wouldn't let me talk about principles. She said it's more than principles, it's a law. And so I had to look up definitions of laws and governing rules, regulations, and requirements. These are things that this community feels that they have to do. Some have called it the New Start: nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, fresh air, sleep, and trust in God. You know, when we, you think of temperance, I remember I was driving home. I'm from Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, and I was driving home once, and I was by myself. And you know, when you're by yourself, you can solve all the problems in the world, you know. And so I was thinking a lot. And as I came into Cleveland, passing Lake Erie, there was a storm brewing. And the thought came to me that we cannot live without water, but too much will kill us. And so this area of temperance is very important. We have to be temperate in all things. So as we think about it, there's a lot of sick people in this country, you know. And so I decided to look at a few of these diseases. And initially, I put heart disease as number 1 because we say that heart disease is the number 1 cause of death in this country. But if you've listened to me over the years, I've said for years that the number 1 cause of death in this country is stress. It's stress, all right? And if you look, as I have tried to look and see how many deaths are actually credited to stress, it was only about 700,000. I said, no, that's not it. Why? Because heart disease, stress, cancer, stress, diabetes, stress, kidney failure, stress, arthritis, stress, also the collagen vascular diseases, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, migraines, ulcers, all of these diseases are associated with stress. And so stress is the number 1 cause of death in this country. the statistics say 60%, but we know it's probably close to about 95% of people in this country are stressed. Now, and this is very important because in my practice, unfortunately, I treat a lot of cancer patients. And over the years, I've only seen one cancer patient, one, that did not have significant stress for at least 2 years prior to the onset of the cancer. You know, and that one patient, I did everything I could to discover where the stress was, but yet I could find no stress. But everybody else is stressed. I remember one guy, he was from New York. He said, "No, doc, I don't have any stress." I said, "Well, stress generally comes from family, from job, from children, from finances." He said, "Oh, I got all of those. Plus, I'm in a PhD program, so I'm highly stressed." So stress is a major, major thing, and the reason, one of the reasons I talk about it so much is because we have a wrong concept of where stress comes from. See, we think it's you know, from those outer sources, you know, but stress comes from within. I tell my patients all the time, I would love to blame all of my problems on my wife, but I can't, all right? Because it is not my wife, it's me, you know? It's our response to the problem, not the problem itself, okay? I want you to understand that clearly. It is our response to the problem, not the problem itself. And this is not to say that we don't have problems and that the problem doesn't need to be dealt with, but it doesn't need to be dealt with by stress. Because if it was, I would be prescribing it every day to my patients. You know, stress 15 minutes 4 times a day, you know, or stress QID, you know. So stress is a major factor. So when we look at disease, sometimes we throw numbers around and we don't appreciate what we're really talking about. So I looked at the population of the 4 largest cities in the United States. New York, 8.8. LA, 3.8. Chicago, 2.7. And Houston, 2.3 million people. A total, if my math is correct, 17.6 million people, all right? But looking at heart disease alone, there's over 18.2 million cases of heart disease, all right? Now, the question that we need to be asking ourselves, why are we so sick, all right? Why are we so sick? You know, if we go back to heart disease, I believe that heart disease, along with just about all of the leading causes of death in this country, are preventable and reversible, you know? And so, is it that we aren't spending enough money on health care? Is that the reason we're so sick in this country? Well, the reality is that we spend more than twice the amount of money on health care of any other developing country in the world, all right? And if you look at the numbers on the extreme right, is the average, and it looks like we're spending about 3 times as much as the average country. And yet, in terms of life expectancy, we ranked 34th in the world in life expectancy. So I tell people, it's our lifestyle, stupid. It's our lifestyle. See, the U.S. Ranks first in the world in meat consumption. It ranks 4th in the world in stress, and it ranks 15th from the bottom in exercise, in spite of having over 40,000 exercise centers in the United States. We rank 15th from the bottom, all right? So next we want to look at diseases that kill. What are the diseases that's really killing us? Well, on the right here, you'll see a list of the top 10 causes of death according to their statistics. Remember, based on mine, stress is number one. And I remember I was doing this TV show. I would do it every year in Richmond, Virginia, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. The first year I was a guest, and after that they asked me to be the co-host. And the host said to me one year, "Ted, Time Magazine has finally caught up with you, and have said that stress is the number one cause of death in this country." And so at least somebody agrees with me. But we look at all of these diseases, and not only they're associated with stress, they're also associated with nutrition. Heart disease, cancer, strokes, diabetes is what they recognize here. But if they'd asked me, I would have helped them a little bit, because Alzheimer's is also associated with diet. Did you know that? We talked about Alzheimer's being associated with lead, with aluminum, etc. But if you go and you look in the literature, you'll see there's something called cardiogenic dementia. Cardiogenic dementia. And that's why the reason for that is when they've done autopsies on patients who died from Alzheimer's, they looked at a cross-section of the brains and at the vessels, and those vessels looked just like the vessels of someone who died of coronary artery disease, full of calcium, cholesterol, and inflammation. And so Alzheimer's should be added to that list. Kidney failure should definitely be added to that list, because when I was in medical school, they taught us that meat, protein causes stress to the kidneys. Meat, protein causes stress to the kidneys. However, if you talk to nephrologists, they will not tell you that. In fact, they tell their patients to eat plenty meat because you need protein. All right, I'm going to dispel that in just a moment. But I say, well, maybe what they're trying to do is get more patients on dialysis, because the research clearly shows that protein, especially animal protein, works the kidneys extremely hard. They've done studies where they've given the patients with kidney failure, and they've done with kidney failure, and they've also done with people with normal kidneys, and it affects them the same way. If they give them animal protein, the kidneys work much harder. The function is less. They give them plant protein, goes back down. Animal protein goes back up. It's like a yo-yo, you know. And so it's clear that this animal protein is works very hard on the kidneys, and so that should be included in there. And in reality, probably all of these things, because diet is a major factor. You know, we talk about inflammation. Inflammation comes from eating animal protein, processed foods, and sugar. All right? And this inflammation causes all kinds of problems with us, you know. And I used to try to stay away from dealing with thyroid. But I have to deal with thyroid because it's increasing at such a rapid rate, and it's because the body is attacking itself, these autoimmune diseases, where the body is attacking itself, and is attacking itself because of the inflammation, is attacking itself because of the diet that we eat. So if we look at cardiovascular disease and the cause of it, there's a diet component. This diet is high in fat, high in cholesterol, processed foods, refined foods. Now, the fat is animal fat, and cholesterol only comes from animals. There's no cholesterol in plants. All right, no cholesterol in plants. And of course, we've talked about the refined foods and sugar. And of course, stress and lack of exercise are factors. And so what happens is you eat this diet that's high in animal fat and processed foods, and it causes this inflammatory process. And you need to, if you haven't studied, you need to look at this whole issue of inflammation, because inflammation deals with the immune system. all right? And the immune system is at the basis of all of these diseases. And so the body attempts to repair itself of this injury that has been put upon it, and it does so by laying down these plaques in the vessels, all right? And calcium is also put there. It's like trying to patch up a hole, you know? You put this patch on it, but then what happens? The hole leaks. You put another patch on top of that patch, and a patch on top of the patch, you know? And pretty soon you end up with atherosclerotic disease. I remember the first time I did a femoral popliteal bypass, where you bypass the femoral artery to the popliteal artery because of blockage in the leg. And the attendant said, "Watkins, feel this artery." And when I felt the artery, it was hard as a rock. We talk about hardening of the arteries. That is a reality. It was hard as a rock, and because of the inflammatory process. And then what happens, sometimes your blood pressure is higher, and because of the stiff blood vessels, it can cause a portion of that plaque to break off, and you get what we call embolism or MI, myocardial infarction. So cancer is the second leading cause of death, and there's also a food connection with cancer. Fat and protein, once again, have been shown to increase cancers of the breast, prostate, and colon. So at least those three cancers, but we know that it's much, much more. I remember when I was a third-year medical student, I did pediatrics at Bethesda Naval, and we had to write a paper. And so I wrote my paper on, if we're going to reverse cancer, we must focus in on building the immune system. And it's funny because the doctors there thought that I was a little crazy. But now I tell people I wish I had my paper, because it was clear I was way ahead of the community, at least in that area. Because there's definitely this relationship between all these fats. If you look at the slides, it's showing changes down in the DNA. You know, that's immune factors at play. And this is being caused by the diets that we're eating. All right? Now, I mentioned about this protein. You know, the myth is that we need a lot of protein. Well, that is not true. The truth is that we don't need to eat protein. Now, before you think I'm crazy, we need to eat amino acids, all right? If we eat protein, the body has to take that protein and break it down into the constituent amino acids and then build the specific protein that you need, all right? And so the meal that you ate today, the body will use those amino acids and build what it needs today. If you eat that same meal tomorrow, the body will build different proteins because your needs have changed. We're fearfully and wonderfully made, someone says. And so we need these proteins. So there's research to show that too much protein is actually dangerous. I've already talked about that. Excuse me for not having turned this off. A robocaller. It's crazy. So, you know, we eat too much protein. Some of you perhaps have heard of Dr. Colin Campbell. He was at Cornell University, head of nutritional science there, and he was asked to do this study. Actually, they were looking at primarily cancer in China, and he wrote this book called The China Study. He and some other physicians, along with about 100 statisticians from Oxford, went and surveyed the whole province in Canada, in China, trying to understand the cause of cancer. and they came up with one of the major factors was too much protein. But they also saw that this was associated with heart disease, kidney failure, osteoporosis, and certain cancers. All right? Now, if you eat a diet high in beans, lentils, grains, vegetables, fruits, it contains all the essential amino acids that we need to make proteins. All the essential amino acids. And what does essential amino acids mean? These are amino acids that the body does not make. The body makes most of the amino acids, but there are some amino acids that the body does not make, and so we have to get them in our foods. And these are found all in the plant foods that we need. There was a study by Dr. Sung, and this was in 2016, so it wasn't that terribly long ago, and he concluded, he was at Harvard University and at Mass General Hospital, that high animal protein intake was positively associated with increase in death or mortality rates, whereas a high plant protein intake was inversely associated with mortality, meaning the animal proteins kill, the plant proteins protect it. For every 3% increase in plant protein calories, there was a 10% decrease in overall risk of dying, for every 3%. And there was a 12% decrease from heart disease. So, you know, the data is out there. We need to just look at it. And even stress is associated with our diet. Even stress, that number one cause of death, according to Ted Watkins, is associated with the kinds of foods that we eat. We look at our children. One of the diseases I focus on so much is diabetes, because diabetes is a terrible disease. I say that diabetes in many instances is worse than cancer. And I say that because it strikes at a younger age, and it affects so many different organs. Diabetes is the number one cause of kidney failure. It is the number one cause of adult blindness. It was the number one cause of amputations, all right? And increase the risk of heart attacks, heart disease by some 500%, and strokes by some 200%. So this diabetes is a terrible disease. When I was young, we had juvenile diabetes and adult onset diabetes. We don't talk about juvenile and adult anymore. What do we talk about? Type 1 and type 2, all right? And there's actually a type 1.5, at least I call it type 1.5, because it's adults who are not obese. Type 2 diabetes is what we used to call adult diabetes, but the reason we can't call it adult is because we have children as young as 8 to 11 years old getting the typical adult diabetes. Is it because of genetics? No, it's because of environment. Because if you look at the table, they're all eating the same way. And these kids are becoming extremely obese to the point that diabetes in the last decade or so has gone up 20-fold. And that's according to the New England Journal of Medicine, one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world. All right, and so this thing of diabetes is terrible, and yet diabetes is preventable and reversible. I have a program that I'm doing right now called End Diabetes Now. End Diabetes Now, because I'm tired of people being sick of diabetes, and it just doesn't have to be. Here's just a list of many of the micronutrients that the body needs. It's amazing. When I left surgery and went into holistic medicine, most of the patients that came to me were patients with stage 4 cancer, stage 4 heart disease, etc. And many of them had been sent home to die. And instead of them dying, we changed their diet and lifestyle. You know, I remember this one guy, he had gone to Johns Hopkins, and he had brain cancer. And Johns Hopkins did all they could, and they sent him home to die. But instead of dying, he came to me. And after a number of months, Johns Hopkins called my office and asked my secretary, could you please give us the date that he died, so-and-so died, so we can update our records. And she laughed and said, well, he's not dead. When she said that to me, I said, well, you should have also told him that not only is he not dead, we've gotten 2 CAT scans to show that he no longer has brain cancer. And it was because of the micronutrients. But it wasn't micronutrients in pills. It was micronutrients in what? In food. In food. I don't use a lot of vitamins in my practice. I'm a food man, you know. Give me the food. You know, y'all heard me talk about beans. I just did the third in the series on beans, good for the heart, beans and diabetes, and last Tuesday was beans and cancer. Beans is just an awesome food, but there's so many other foods that are equally good. And here's another slide that shows the many foods where you can get those amino acids to produce the proteins from, and they're just it's just, you know, it's amazing, and you know, you need to read for yourself, all right, because unfortunately doctors don't know very much about nutrition. In fact, I hope there are no nutritionists here, because nutritionists don't know very much about nutrition either, because they were not taught how to get patients well. They were taught how to, you know, control symptoms, all right? When a nutritionist come to work with me, I say, come, let me teach you nutrition. Because if your nutrition is not getting a patient well, then your nutrition is not doing good. If I just control your disease, to me, I'm a failure, and I hate to fail. You know, my goal is to help you reverse the disease. And in many instances, we can do that by changing the lifestyle. Even those fruits, those good-looking fruits, have a lot of amino acids that we need in them. Since we're in a church, I thought I would drop a few Bible texts on you, you know. You know, James 4:17, therefore to him that knoweth to do right and does it not is sin. 1 Corinthians 10:31, therefore you eat or drink, or should be whatsoever you do, do it all to the glory of God. And in 1 Corinthians 3:16 and 17, it says, know you not that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy. Which temple are ye? I remember I was in Las Vegas. It was 1992. I'll never forget. And I was at the National Medical Association, the NMA meeting. And the NMA was started because of the discrimination in medicine through the AMA. And so when you'd come in the room and you cut the television on, it was giving you the history of medicine, not the history of black medicine, the history of medicine which was black. And I was a proud brother, you know, and every day I'd cut the TV on and it would come. And then one day I came in and I cut the television on and I became very, very depressed. Because I said, why did the Egyptians have to do intracranial and intra-abdominal surgeries 2,000 years before Christ? 2,000 years before Christ, they were doing intracranial and intra-abdominal surgery. All right? They were doing spine surgery 2,000 years before Christ. All right? And then it hit me. There was a text that I learned some years ago, Exodus 16:26, 15:26. If you obey my laws, I'm paraphrasing, and keep my commandments, obey all my laws and my commandments, and keep my statutes, I will not put on you the diseases I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. And so we have to be really concerned about what we're doing. One final text. What? Know you not that your body is a temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and you are not your own, for you were what? Bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. You know, I mean, it's really a powerful, powerful thing. And you can be rid of me in just a moment. I was interviewing one of my patients, who's a psychologist, on radio one day, and we were talking about the origin of these diseases, and we were talking about the fact that people actually know what they should and shouldn't be eating. For instance, when a patient comes to me, I ask them, tell me about your diet, all right? That's the way I say it. Tell me about your diet. And many of them, maybe because they're coming to me and they think I want to hear it, they start telling me how they have cut out meat, all right? And then a few sentences later, they say that they eat chicken a couple times a week. And they eat fish on Friday like Jews, you know. So I said, wait a minute. They don't realize that chicken and fish are actually animal foods. And so, you know, but they know that there's some foods they shouldn't be eating that they're eating, all right? And so she said, Dr. Watkins, that sounds to me like suicide. I said, I've never thought about that. I said, and if they knowingly are feeding it to their family, then they're also committing murder. And so we need to take a serious look. I know it sounds hard, you know, but we need help, you know. Help me. And I spoke at this church a few weeks ago, and I hit them harder than I'm hitting you, you know. And I said, but I'm not coming as your enemy. I'm coming as your friend. And if your friend sees you heading toward quicksand and they don't warn you, then they're not your friend. All right? So I'm not here to get into your business. You can eat whatever you want to eat. But I feel it's my responsibility to at least tell you what the literature says, all right? And it's not just in one place. You know, it's not some crazy, you know, some of the top researchers in the world have producing the research. It's there, you know? And maybe we hide it in a book, but we need to know it. And you need to teach your doctors because they don't know it either. And, you know, I'll shut up here, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer a few of them. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins. And I'm glad that you didn't speak before lunch because I wouldn't have eaten it. Thank you. So my father passed in December, kidney disease, and he was a retired athlete, ate well, exercised, did all that stuff. And after retirement, he worked my mother, 3 meals a day, you know. He had a certain diet that he wanted. However, he had high blood pressure. I'm wondering if the high blood pressure pills, you know, that medication has anything to do with the destruction of the kidneys. And can kidney disease be, what was the word? You know, reversed. Yes, sir. And thank you so much for the information.
There is some evidence that there are medications that do cause some damage to the kidneys, all right? And so, if possible, we should avoid those medications. But I'm of the opinion that you should only avoid them if you are not willing to change your diet, all right? Because if you're going to continue your diet, that high blood pressure will kill you. There have been studies of people, of men in Kenya into their 90s and 100s with a blood pressure 116 over 60 and 70, blood pressures that they had when they were teenagers. And so it's clear that diet is associated with blood pressure. And these are many of the Africans that live in the bush. The modern day African, if you eat like an American, what are you going to do? You're going to die like an American. And so the ones that's eating like Americans, they're dying like Americans, so they have high blood pressure too. In terms of kidney disease, I remember when I left surgery, one of the first things that I did, I started a program for seniors called Walk for Life in Washington, D.C., where I went into some of the senior buildings in D.C. and put them on a lifestyle program. And I remember one lady, I think she's from this building, Arthur Kappa. She came to me and said, Dr. Watkins, they want me to go on dialysis. I said, why? She said, I have a creatinine of 3.5. I said, well, if you have a creatinine of 3.5, you need to be on dialysis. See, if you get to a creatinine of 1.5, you already lost half of your kidney function. So I said, you need to be on dialysis. No, Dr. Watkins, you must help me. I said, I will only treat you if the head of nephrology at Howard, Dr. Holston, will follow you with me. See, I was a young doc. I didn't want to be on the front of the Washington Post. Crazy doc, treats chronic kidney failure patient with diet and herbs, So I called Dr. Holston, and I said to him what I didn't say to her. I said, I believe I can help this lady, but I told him I told her I will not do it unless you are willing to follow her with me. He said, well, what are you going to do, Ted? I said, I'm going to put her on a diet. I'm going to take her off the animal fat and protein. I'm going to put her on a diet high in unrefined carbohydrates, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains, seeds, and nuts. I'm going to give her activated charcoal to pull out the toxins and the fluid, and I'm going to have her walk. He said, if you follow her closely, I'll follow her with you. So when she comes back in a couple of weeks, her creatinine goes from 3.5 to 5.5. I said, no, that's going in the wrong direction. But you can always go on dialysis. Let's keep going. She comes back, it's back down to 3.5, then 2.5, then 1.5, then 1. When it gets to 1, I sent her for a scan, and she had complete perfusion, total reversal of her kidney disease. So I knew then that kidney disease could be reversed. Now, I have this crazy patient from Detroit. Whenever anything happens to him, he gets on the phone, or if necessary, he gets on the plane, and he comes to D.C. for me to treat him. And so one time he broke his neck, and as soon as he got out the hospital, he went straight to the airport and came for me to treat his fractured neck. Although I'm not an orthopedist, but at any rate, we got him well. But he told this guy that you need to call Dr. Watkins. He calls me. He's on dialysis. I said, no. There's nothing I can do if you're on dialysis. He said, no, Dr. Watkins. I was told if you can't help me, nobody can. I said, well, let me do some research. And so I started doing some research, and what I found, and see, that's why reading is so important. I found that there was a study, I believe it was in Indiana, this hospital in Indiana, and it was collaborated by some doctors from Stanford University, that if you gave a patient, they took 22 patients, on dialysis. And they had to be on dialysis for at least 12 weeks, and they put them on coenzyme Q10, 60 milligrams 3 times a day. And after 12 weeks, 12 of the 22 were off dialysis, It's just simply amazing. And so there's a tremendous capacity that we have. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. And if we give the body what it needs, the body knows what to do with it. Amen. Any other questions? I have a question. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Watkins, the question I have is that how can we get into that program in diabetes now? Because I have diabetes. My mother had it. She died of it. She had amputations and everything. My sister has it as well. She's gone blind in one of her eyes.
You can give my office a call, and they can get you get you into it.
Okay, thank you. And one more. I thought fish was good for you. I didn't know fish was like bad for you. You got that up there with the other meats.
Yeah. So I have to confess, I love fish, especially grouper and red snapper and so forth. But and we would eat fish a couple times a year. You know, we get invited to a wedding reception, and we put down vegetarian, and the vegetables are so horrible. So I would, you know, because folk don't know how to fix vegetables. And so we would eat fish. Then one day I saw this special, I think it was a Bill Moyer's special, and they had this waste that was so toxic that nobody would allow them to dump it. All right? They literally went on a barge from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast trying to find somebody to let them put it in the landfill. And finally, they took it way out in the middle of the ocean, and they dumped it in the ocean. And one day it hit me. I said, wait a minute. That's where our freshwater fish come from. And so I told my wife, I'm not eating any more fish. All right? So now my wife likes restaurants. I do not like them. But since I'm smart, I take her to restaurants, right? So, and next year will be 50 years. So I've been smart a long time, right? So we go to this restaurant, and so my wife said, you know, are you going to eat fish? I said, baby, I told you, I'm not eating any more fish. So the waitress comes to the table, and my wife asked the waitress, where do you get your salmon? Oh, we get it from the fresh waters of Alaska. Well, we had just gotten back from a cruise from Alaska, and the water was just pristine clear, you know. And so, but when she goes to the restroom and comes back, she sees the manager. She asks the manager, where do you get your salmon? Well, the lady just told you where you get your salmon. He says, from the fresh waters of Alaska as babies. And then we bring them back and let them grow. What do we call that? Farm fish. All right, farm fish. All right? And so you have to be very careful that you ask the right question. You know, is it straight from the fresh water, or did it take a detour through the sewage plant? You know, yeah. So I won't say any more on that. The other point I tend to make when I talk about fish, I tell people Christ ate fish, and he probably ate meat too, but he certainly ate fish. And he ate it, the Bible says he ate it right before he was translated. All right? And it says that he ate it all. Okay? But the water then and the water now are different. All right? And so you have to be careful of that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being here, doctor. What would you say about treating idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis?
That is a very, very difficult disease to treat, all right? It's associated with right-sided heart failure, which is the medical community really does not have any treatment for that. But what I use, and I've gotten some treatment, some benefit, is something called the modified rice diet. The modified rice diet. It's a program that was started at Duke in 1939, and it has been effective. It was started because of malignant hypertension and kidney failure, but they have found, and I have found, that it works on all, just about all organ systems. It's just amazing. And so with the pulmonary fibrosis, you have to decrease the inflammation. You have to get those walls to thin out. And I believe that this is happening. It's early. I don't see a lot of patients with that, but the ones that I'm seeing, it seems like it's making a difference. And so I'm going to keep doing that until I see something different.
If they're saying that it's only scarring the tissues of the lungs, this is what they're saying.
Right, right. It's scarring the tissues of the lungs, all right? And what I'm saying is that this rice diet, which is a very difficult diet, I'll just tell you. But I tell people to look in the mirror and you're worth it, you know. But it has worked on all organ systems. For instance, I have a physician, just talked to him last night. He was on my Bible study last night. 8 years ago, he came to me with cancer. We call clear cell carcinoma. It started in his kidney. It went to his liver, his pancreas, his lungs, his thyroid, his adrenal gland. He was going to Johns Hopkins and he was dying. And he came to me and I put him on my regular cancer protocol. But then it's you know, which is a very difficult, intense protocol by itself. Then I said, if I don't do something different, this crazy man gonna die. And so I called him in. I said, I want you to go on the rice diet because I've seen the rice diet work on every organ system that I've treated. I had a guy with stage 5 heart failure. The normal ejection fraction should be 60 to 65, at least 50. His was 16. They thought he was going to have a heart transplant. I put him on the rice diet. His heart went from enlarged. In 2 weeks, it was upper limits of normal. In 4 weeks, it was normal in size. It's just amazing. Thyroids shrink. All kinds of stuff happens. And so I use this program, and I believe I'm getting good results with it. Yes, ma'am.
With respect to the meat proteins, do you have like a level of, or types of meat, like red meat versus white meat versus the fish? And then my follow-up question is, with the farm-raised fish, there have been reports that sometimes they're not the best. Some facilities are not very good at
They're
monitoring.
definitely not the best.
Yeah, okay. So,
In terms of the type of meat, so it's very interesting. I did I did a show on fish and chicken because people were clearly misinformed, and there was a study, the Adventist Health Study showed that they looked at colon cancer, for instance, and they showed that if you ate red or white meat, there was an increase in colon cancer, all right? They found that if you ate red meat, there was a twice the risk of developing colon cancer. But if you ate white meat, fish and chicken, there was a three times risk for developing. So it was twice. Harvard also did a similar study and came up with the same results. And so we have been lied to again, and because money is more important than you, and so you have to educate yourselves and just read, you know, and it's not hard. You just go and put in the association in Google, put in association between chicken and cancer, and it'll blow your mind. The results are there, you know. Is that it? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I was going to make a comment. I used to work with a gentleman whose father raised chickens on the Eastern Shore in Maryland, and I think for Purdue or one of those companies, but he said they would add steroids and other additives to the feed of the chicken. He said they would reach maturity in half the time and be a lot heavier. They got paid by the pound.
Oh, yeah.
So some of the food, you know, that might be one of the causative factors.
Oh, yes.
You know, so.
Yeah, they feed these things anything to increase their weight, increase the money. They're also increasing the amount of fat. And of course, the animal fat is one of the major problems. I didn't mention, but I should mention that diabetes, the #1 cause of diabetes is insulin resistance, where the insulin gets to the cell, but it cannot interact with the cell to get the sugar into the cell to do its job. The number one cause of insulin is insulin resistance. The number one cause of insulin resistance is animal protein. All right? And it's interesting, in this class that I'm doing, one of the top diabetologists in the country, a friend of mine, I had him do several of my presentations. And in the first presentation, he said that 10 to 12 years before there's a rise in blood sugar, 10 to 12 years before there's a rise in blood sugar, before you're diagnosed as being pre-diabetic, there's already insulin resistance. All right? And the insulin resistance is responsible for the hypertension. There's something called metabolic syndrome, which if you look in the literature, there's a lot written on metabolic syndrome, but it started because of the insulin resistance, all right? And it's present. And why that's so significant is because the complications that I talked about diabetes starts in the pre-diabetic phase. So if you're just pre-diabetic, that's not a walk in the park, because the problems are starting in the pre-diabetic phase, and yet this insulin resistance is starting 10 to 12 years before that. Lord have mercy. And so we need to do what we need to do. But the beautiful thing is, one of the things that this doctor, the cardiovascular surgeon, Dr. Warham, said in his interview is that if you change, even at a later point in life, you can still get benefit. If you are willing to change. But the change starts here. In my diabetes program, the first 2 sessions were not on diabetes. The first session was on, as a man thinketh, so is he. And the second session was, by beholding, we become change. See, it's how we think that's so important. And see, if we're willing to change how we think, we can change where we are, all right? See, I'm a project boy. I'm a welfare kid. But my mama was crazy. She told me I could do anything, you know? And I was crazy enough to believe her. And what's my name? All right.
That was awesome. That was very informative. And we're going to move right on into our next one is with dealing with stress and meditation exercises by Gail Jackson, a child of God, as she says. Thank you.
Dr. Watkins, you just blew my mind. All right, yes, you did. And did most of my presentation. Hallelujah. I was going to talk about stress, but I can't do it any better than what Dr. Watkins just did. I mean, he broke it on down. You know, it's hard for us, especially in these days and times, to be stress-free. I don't think that any of us can be totally stress-free. You know, we're ripping around. There's so many demands of life. And as Dr. Watkins said, when we're talking about stress, we're talking about an inner reaction to things that happen to us and the demands that we place upon us. Dr. Watkins was also talking about how, and I had also read this before, that anywhere from 50 to 70% of all visits to the doctor are stress-related. CDC says, piggybacking on what Dr. Watkins said, anywhere from 90 to 95% of all illnesses are stress-related. And so this is something that we have to do something about. You know, part of what happens to us when we are stressed is our immune system is compromised. And when our immune system is compromised, it is hard for us to fight off disease. And so we have things like what Dr. Watkins was saying, heart attack, strokes, cancer, all of these things that come as a result of also, I'm learning today, diet, which we kind of knew that. But we like to eat what we like to eat. But really, what we're eating, if we're not paying attention to what the information we just got is killing us. also stress. And so I thought for fun, everybody has a piece of paper in front of them. Let's see how stressed you are. All right. Now, all you have to do is, if your answer is yes, you give yourself 1 point. Okay. Do you frequently neglect your diet? Yes or no? If you got a yes, it's a 1. Do you frequently try to do everything yourself? We tend to be caretakers. We just got so many things that we have on our plate to do. If you frequently try to do everything yourself, because nobody can do it better than you, put down a 1. Okay. Do you frequently blow up easily? Yes or no? Do you frequently seek unrealistic goals? Yes or no? Do you frequently fail to see the humor in situations others find funny? Yes or no? Do you frequently get easily irritated? Do you frequently make a big deal out of everything? Okay. Do you frequently complain that you are disorganized? Do you frequently keep everything inside? Do you frequently neglect to exercise? Do you frequently have few supportive relationships? Do you frequently get too little rest? That would be me. Do you frequently get angry when you're kept waiting? You lack the patience. Do you frequently ignore stress symptoms? We all say that we're stressed. Do you frequently put off things until the last minute? Do you frequently think there is only one right way to do something? Couple more, we're just about there. Do you frequently fail to build relaxation into your everyday practice? Do you frequently spend a lot of time complaining about the past? Do you frequently race through the day? And last but not least, do you frequently feel unable to cope with all that you have to do? All right. If you have 0, I'm scared of you. 1 to 6 yeses, you can consider yourself few hassles, all right? 7 to 12, you have pretty good control. Okay, you add up your yeses. 13 to 17, you're in the danger zone. You gotta watch out. 18 or above, you're stressed and you need some help. And so we're going to talk about some ways that you can do that. One is, oftentimes we forget to realize that there are other people who can help us, who can take the load off of us. When we talk about lowering your self-expectations, sometimes we don't give ourselves enough time to do the things that we need to do. We wait till the last minute, and we're rushing through. I know for myself, I oftentimes I think I have more time than I do have, and I'm last minute, I'm rushing out, creating some stress that I could probably avoid just by building in a little more time to get where I need to get, to do what I need to do. Okay. We have to also remind ourselves that we don't have to be perfect. Okay. And we oftentimes are our worst critics. We criticize ourselves. You know, these are things that, you know, I should be better, I should do better, can sometimes also add stress into our lives. We oftentimes don't exercise the way that we need to exercise. Exercise, aerobic exercise, helps to counter some of the negative results of stress. It also helps us to be able to sleep a little better, you know. Yeah, and if you could, a lot of doctors will tell you to at least build in at least 3 days a week that you put some kind of exercise into your routine. You'll find that you'll feel better. You'll also find that you sleep better if you exercise. We talked about planning ahead. You know, if you have a big project that you have to do, you might want to begin to just look at it in small little segments. You don't have to look at the big project, all this to do. Just kind of break it down and do a little bit at a time, minimizing your stress. When I talk about sharing that stress with someone, talking to someone that you trust, someone, you know, I call godly counsel. We know that very often we as African Americans, God has been our counselor, he is our pastor, he is all of that. But God also works through people. And there are folks that we can go to, that we can talk to, that can help us to be able to walk this journey with us, you know, and to see things that we're so embroiled emotionally in a situation we don't see. And so godly counsel is a good thing. In fact, Proverbs 19, verse 20 states, "Get all the advice and instruction you can and be wise the rest of your life." You know, it's been said you can't pour out of an empty cup. So, you know, part of what happens to us very often is, you know, we're so busy giving, doing, doing. And many of us in this room are caregivers. All right. Very, very stressful. You know, I remember when I was caregiving for my mother, someone was saying to me that when a person who is a caregiver walks into the room where the person is that you're caring for, your blood pressure automatically goes up. You know, that's stress. If you are caregiving for someone, you need to take time to take care of you, you know. So also remembering that you are not alone. We know that God is, as Father Pat said earlier today, he is always with us. You know, he never leaves us. He never forsakes us. We are not alone. And when we talk about the importance of being able to relax, it's a good thing to do. You know, we have to build, and I'm a mental health therapist by practice. And so I said, one of the things we have to do is we prioritize our lives. God first, family second, then a job. And if we believe that God is our provider and he is our provider, he has already provided for you. And so sometimes we get caught up and we take on stress, and we are stressed out because we think we have to do everything. And if we don't do it, it's not going to happen. You know, once having done all to stand, we stand and trust that God's got the rest of it. And so one of the things that we're going to do right now, because as I said, thank you, Dr. Watkins did most of what I was getting ready to say and talk about the negative effects of stress. He's already said it. So I'm not going to reiterate it. We heard it. I got it. You know, I'm going to make a few changes and pray about the rest. But we're going to do a relaxation exercise right now. And so I want you to just get comfortable in your seat. Put your pens down. You got my music on, Janet? Oh, here we go. Okay. So I want you just to kind of, if you need to push back from the chair, you can. And I want you just to close your eyes. And you're going to take a deep breath in and let it go very, very slowly. And you're going to take another deep breath in and let it go very, very slowly. With every breath that you take in, you're going to take in what is good, what is loving, what is peaceful and peaceable. With every exhale, you're going to release from your body the tension, tightness, worry, stress, anxiety, disappointment, frustration, anything and everything that keeps you from feeling at peace and connecting with the source of peace. You're going to allow those things to flow up, up, and out. And knowing that your mind controls your body, your mind controls your body. In your mind, you are going to give permission for each member of your body just to let go, to relax, to be at peace, and I will guide you in that process. Starting with the muscles in your feet, I want you to, in your mind, tell the muscles in your feet to relax. They have served you well, taking you all the places that you needed to go, doing all of those things that you needed for them to do. And now you are going to give them this time, this opportunity to let go, to unwind, to peace be still. As tension and tightness and stress that may have landed in the area of your feet begins to flow up, up, and out, letting go, unwinding, releasing. When you feel that the muscles in your feet have begun to relax, then you're going to continue on to the muscles in your ankles, giving them permission to relax, letting go, unwinding, releasing, casting your cares upon a Creator who cares for you, who says, "Come unto me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Come and take my yoke and learn of me, for my yoke is easy, my burdens are light." And allow that one that promised to be your burden bearer, your heavy load sharer, to take those worries, those cares, that stress, that anxiety, that frustration, that you can have this time of peace, letting go, unwinding, releasing. Now your legs, allowing the muscles in your legs to relax, allowing your legs just to be limp right where you are. This is the time in which the God of the universe is giving you to take care of you. You who take care of so many others, so many things on your plate, so many things you have to do. Now is your time to take care of you. And as you breathe in, breathing in a peace that surpasses all understanding, releasing from you stress and worry and anxiety that compromises your immune system, wreaks havoc with your digestive tract, allowing it to flow up, up, and out, letting go, unwinding, releasing. Now your thighs, allowing the muscles in your thighs to relax, as you allow your lower extremities just to be limp right where you are, as a peace that comes from the source of goodness and love and light and peace begins to fill you, to make you, melt you, mold you, fill you, renew you, energize you, anchor you into that which is greater than you, letting go, unwinding, releasing, realigning yourself with the fact that you're a king's kid. You're the head and not the tail. You're a leader and not a follower. Greater is he that is in you than he that's in the world. Letting go of stress and worry and anxiety, allowing those things like particles of dust in the wind to flow up, up, and out. Letting go, and then moving on. Moving on to the muscles in your stomach, your abdomen, your rib cage, allowing these muscles to relax. As you allow those gastric juices to flow in the manner that God created them to, releasing from you the stress that may have attached itself to you in this area, that stress that compromises your immune system, that wreaks havoc with your digestive tract, allowing those things that are toxic to your well-being to flow up, up, and out. Letting go, unwinding, releasing. Now your chest, your shoulders, your arms, allowing this part of you to relax. Letting go of those things that have weighed so heavy upon your heart, those things that are overwhelming, those things that are out of our control. God's got it. He's already worked it out, and he promised to do it for your good and his glory. Releasing from you those things that have weighed so heavy upon you, knowing we are total healing is mind, body, and spirit, and allowing those things to bead up like beads of water, to roll down your arms, out your fingers, onto the floor, letting go, unwinding, releasing. Now your neck, your face, your forehead, and your scalp. And allowing these muscles to relax. Allowing those things that have weighed so heavy upon your mind, those worried, anxious thoughts, those things that keep you from falling asleep at night, knowing how important sleep is to your body. Those things that wake you up in the middle of the night, those worried, anxious thoughts, when the God that we serve has told us not to be worried or anxious about anything, but in everything, with prayer, petition, and thanksgiving, we are to make every request known, so that the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus, letting go, unwinding, releasing. I want you to take a moment just to make sure that all the muscles in your body have obeyed you. If there is any part of you that continues to feel tense or tight or stressed, go back to that part. Reassured that it's okay to let go. God's got whatever it's carrying. And I'm going to take you on an imaginary journey. I want you to imagine in your mind's eye that you see yourself in a very beautiful, peaceful place. And this beautiful, peaceful place is in the midst of nature. Whether it's near an ocean or a lake or a meadow or a mountain or a rainforest or a prairie, wherever you are in the midst of nature, in the midst of the handiwork of an awesome God, and you are there alone. And as you are there, you're going to take in the beauty, the wonder of everything that is around you. Communing with nature at its finest, the peace and the tranquility that is there. Each and everything you see was created by and is cared for by an awesome creator, including you. There are no two things exactly alike, although they may look alike. No two things exactly alike. You have been sent to your peaceful place for a very special reason. You have been sent to your peaceful place to meet with and connect with in a very special way, your caretaker. Now, your caretaker is that one that is all-knowing, all-loving, all-understanding, knows all about your past, knows about the present, knows about the road that lies ahead, and loves you with an unconditional love. Now, for some people, their caretaker may present as a man, for others a woman, for others a bright light, for others a shadowy figure, for others an overwhelming feeling of peace and love that surrounds them. You're going to allow your caretaker to take whatever form it takes for you. But just know that it will be good and loving and give you good and loving messages. As you are there, your caretaker knows that there are things that you've carried in your heart, things that have been on your mind, things that you've harbored that not only have stressed you, but distressed you. And your caretaker is coming to your peaceful place for you to, in your mind, talk with your caretaker about those things that you've carried, those secret burdens that have been upon your heart, those things that have troubled you when you try to close your eyes at night. The caretaker says, cast your cares upon me because I care for you. And as you are there, coming towards you, you're going to begin to feel or see the presence of your caretaker. As your caretaker approaches and lifts you up like you were a little kid again, and you feel safe. You feel protected. You know you are loved. And I want you to take this time to, in your mind, talk with your caretaker about those things that you've held in your heart. And when you are finished, your caretaker will speak back to your heart. When you and the caretaker have finished speaking, then just allow yourself to be present in the moment. Before you leave, your caretaker will give you a gift to remind you of this very special visit that the two of you have had. Take this time to talk with your caretaker. Once you have finished, you can just bring your awareness back to the room and open your eyes when you have finished. Very good. Very good. Very good. How you feel? Good. Very good. Feel free. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is something that you can do for yourself. To realize that you need to take time for you. You know, giving back to you. Breathing is a wonderful, natural way of letting go of some of the stress that we have and realizing that God is in the midst of everything that we do, and He's promised He's worked all things out. Again, as I said, for your good and His glory. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Gail. That was very, very relaxing. Very good. Thank you so much. Yes. I just want to make time to make sure that everyone does look into their packet. There is the evaluation form that we will need for you to fill out. And again, there are some other things in relations to breast cancer, prostate cancer, and also God's amazing pharmacy. God's pharmacy is amazing. Okay? So it just gives you a little bit of a, outlook on some of the disease processes and what can be helped with fruits and vegetables. All right, thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming. If I can get all of the health ministry members to stand up. All of the health ministry members. Thank you. Thank you so much. We could not have done this without your help and your guidance and everything else. And this actual is our first time without Ernest. This is our first rodeo without Ernest. And I do want to ask everyone to keep him in prayer, his family in prayer. And then I just wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to see the dedication we gave for him in loving memory of Ernest. Okay? Thank you so much. Yes. Yes. It's all dedicated to Ernest he's one of our own, forever in our hearts, the St. Augustine Health and Homebound Ministry. Okay? And we have one more picture of him when we were at his birthday party, and that was the St. Augustine, all of us members that were able to attend. All right? Thank you so much again. All right, thank you.
You did it? No, I didn't get it. Oh, my phone number, for those who wanted it, it's area code 2.